Jerry Nadler filing his own legal brief to defend Judge Emmett Sullivan's refusal to dismiss the General Michael Flynn case. Nadler also says he's lining up whistleblowers, as he calls them, to testify against Attorney General William Barr and introducing legislation to slash Barr's personal office budget by $50 million. Nadler is quite something, isn't he? You've seen his act before. What a sorry and pathetic act it is. Solicitor General Noel Francisco calling out Judge Emmett Sullivan's tactics. He wants him to dismiss the case entirely against General Flynn, as he says the Constitution requires. He told the federal appellate court in Washington that Judge Sullivan has no authority whatsoever to block the Justice Department's request to dismiss the case against Flynn, no authority whatsoever to appoint a former federal judge to, of all things, go after Flynn for perjury or contempt. Our next guest this evening is at the center of all this, General Michael Flynn's attorney. Joining us is Sidney Powell, also former federal prosecutor. Sidney, let's start with Noel Francisco basically saying the same thing that you've been saying throughout, but with some considerable power, with the weight of the Justice Department behind him as Solicitor General. He's telling Sullivan basically, shut up, move on, and get out of this.
Yes, there are two separate articles of the Constitution that apply to prohibit Judge Sullivan from proceeding the way he wants to proceed. One is that the executive power and the power of prosecution rests solely with the Department of Justice. Judge Sullivan can't change his robe in for the suit of a prosecutor and go out and play pitch, run, bases, bat, and the whole business. Instead, as we said in our brief, he's way out in left field by himself. And then also, there's no case or controversy left anymore under Article 3 because the parties, the government and General Flynn, have agreed to dismissal of the case, primarily because the government long hid evidence that shows he was innocent and defeat any of the material elements necessary to prove a crime.
And the idea that the radical Dems with Nadler threatening to take on Attorney General Barr and his office budget, for crying out loud. He couldn't be more of a cretin or a creep, could he, than to continue to act in this fashion? What is going to happen here in terms of seeking to put in the hands of such a person grand jury materials? To me, is just unthinkable for whatever the reason.
It is unthinkable, and that's why it hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it will happen. Grand jury materials are protected for a number of reasons, and it's imperative that they continue to be, not the least of which is I would be fairly certain they have something to do with John Durham's investigation now. And the reason all the Democrats are going bonkers in every direction is because that investigation is over the target and getting closer by the minute.
Now, when you say over the target, what do you specifically mean?
I mean that they are talking to the people that conspired to destroy this president and General Flynn, and some people are cooperating, some may not be, but I think they are within the realm of potential indictments sometime in the next few months, and that's got to happen to restore the rule of law in this country.
Mm-hmm. And Nadler coming to support, if you can call whatever Nadler does support, no matter how he intends it, of Emmett Sullivan. This is starting to look like a web, if you will, amongst the legislative radical Dems, and apparently one sitting on the bench who we never suspected until, as you say, people started getting directly over the target. And that is the Obama Justice Department officials and intelligence officials who are responsible for what has been a sorry effort and conspiracy to overthrow a president.
I think Mr. Nadler's also upset because a strong group of House members and a separate group of members of the Senate filed briefs with the Circuit Court of Appeals, the D.C. Circuit, in support of the constitutional principles and the rule of law with respect to the Flynn petition. So he and his group did not do that, and he wants to make sure Judge Sullivan knows he supports his position on this case, which has no reference and bearing or support in the Constitution. But that's not a problem for Mr. Nadler.
Or any of the other radical Dems, as they've demonstrated over the course of the past 3.5 years. As always, Sidney, thank you very much. How soon do you expect a conclusion?
I would think that the Court of Appeals is going to do something fairly soon. Their order was very strong, ordering the briefing. The issues are simple and straightforward and fully briefed now from multiple amici and also the parties themselves. So they've got everything they need now to make a decision very soon. I'm hoping within the next week or two at the outside.
All right, and a very strong advocacy of the correct position, your position, Sidney Powell from the Justice Department. I know you've got to be gratified. Congratulations. Sidney Powell, thanks so much.